Hi, this video is going to explain assessment task 2, which is planning a unit of work. It's going to be a VCE based unit of work for one of your specialisation areas within the context of VCE, which is unit 3 or unit 4. So the unit aim is to help you develop your understanding of the curriculum and pedagogy within the context of VCE through planning a sequence of lessons in your unit and understanding the VCE study designs, as well as other important VCEA supporting documents, including the teachers' advice for teachers. So this is going to help you towards reaching your graduate teacher standards, to develop your skills and experience in creating and engaging in detailed plans for units of work. You could use these on placement or when you're teaching your specialisation within the VCE level. So you're going to work collaboratively within your specialisation groups, and we want no more than 3 students. You're going to be focused with your specialisation workshop teacher, whom you can get feedback from and advice in towards your unit. The groups are going to be formed during those workshop sessions. So if you're absent for whatever reason, you need to be in contact with the specialisation workshop teacher as soon as possible. Now, we understand that your group members may not be enrolled in the same tutorial group as you, but you can work on documents via shared online platforms such as Google Docs. So there's going to be collaborative and individual elements for this assignment. In terms of working together, you're going to do the unit, the unit overview. You're going to submit a cover page, which we've called the unit overview, to indicate your intentions in the unit. I'll show the template that we would like you to use in a moment. So the cover page, the actual unit is collaborative. Then we've got the individual reflection. So this is where you think about yourself as a professional, thinking about what you've experienced in this unit, what you've taken from it, what standards you've achieved, hits, etc., and where are you heading now that you've completed this unit. So the unit is going to focus on one area of study in either Unit 3 or Unit 4, so you can choose which one, as well as assess the associated outcomes. Now, this is going to mean a couple of different things depending on your specialisation. You can discuss this with your specialisation teacher, but for an example, if I was to look at PE, look at Unit 3, we have the first area of study in Unit 3, how our movement skills improved. You can see there that clearly the outcome 1 is associated with the area of study 1. You have some key knowledge that you need to address and some key skills you need to address. So all of these fall under area of study 1, and that's what you will address if you're doing PE, for an example. And there are some other study designs that look very similar to this. Science, for an example, has area of study 1, outcome 1 with the key knowledge. The key skills are in a separate section, but they're quite clearly identified in the study design. Mathematics is a little bit different. Now, we understand that the unit that you're going to create for this assignment is not exactly what a unit would be in terms of your teaching, but it will still help you understand the implications of planning in terms of the VCE curriculum. So if I look at math methods, you've got area of study 1 clearly identified, but then it moves on to area of study 2 and 3. The outcomes are discussed at the end. Now, these outcomes are addressing every area of study. Students need to demonstrate all of these key knowledge for the area of studies discussed above. So in terms of maths, we want you to pick one area of study, and you can assess one outcome and think about which particular dot points or key knowledge dot points are associated with that area of study. Okay, so you'll need to have a look at whichever area of study you choose, have a look at the outcomes and see which one is more aligned with your particular area of study, okay, and address each key skill and key knowledge. So going back to the assignment, we would like you to use, as I mentioned before, the cover page of the template. So on VUC, we've got all these documents, include the year level, the area of study, your group names. This is going to be completed together. Your workshop teacher. We want you to discuss how have you catered in your unit plan. So obviously complete this cover sheet after you've completed the unit plan. How have you catered for differentiation? So units 3 and 4 are very prescriptive. You have key knowledge, key skills, and you're working towards an exam, essentially. How have you catered to differentiation in the confinement of those constraints? It's difficult, but it's not impossible. So you need to outline here how you've considered it, and therefore this will be reflected in your unit activities and your unit plan. How have you incorporated the Victorian teaching and learning model to improve student outcomes in your classroom? So thinking about the practice principles, thinking about pedagogical model and HITs, how have you incorporated them? Which ones have you really focused on? And have a discussion here about, well, what is the evidence base for including the ideas that you have in your unit plan? And then, Unit 3 and 4, we are needing to prepare our students for the exam at the end of the year. So a discussion of how you've prepared them needs to be here. What experiences and what activities have you included to support students towards exam preparation? So thinking about higher order skills, how are they going to develop those? What considerations from the VCEE documents have you thought about? What does it say in the examiner's report, for an example? What does it say in the advice for teachers that you should do, and how you should prepare your students, and what have you thought about that in terms of your unit plan? Okay, so thinking about the exam preparation. Obviously, it's not ideal to teach to the exam, but this is something that you need to think about in order to prepare your students. So the template. Completing this together, include the subject, the year level that you're looking at, how long the unit goes for. Okay, so this will depend on what area of study, how many key knowledge dot points you have, key skills, etc. This is going to be different for each outcome and also each specialisation. So for an example, I know that there's a biology area of study that actually only goes for 2 weeks. So that one would only be 2 weeks. But your humanities outcome probably goes for the whole term. So, we're looking at about 8 to 10 weeks. So this will completely depend on your subject and your area of study that you've chosen. Here, include the area of study and the outcome. Okay. And here we want an overview, just a summary of the topics in the area of study. So what are the ideas that the students will be covering? Key knowledge and key skills will be cut and paste directly from the study guide, so you need to find where they fit within your study guide. Here we've got meta language and keywords. So what's the discourse that's going to occur in that particular area of study? What do students need to be familiar with? Here we've got overall transfer goals, so thinking about what the overall experiences the students will undertake, how will they do it, what activities will they be immersed in, what kind of long-term goals and accomplishments are desired in this unit. Now here we want the SAC task. Briefly describe it, because you're going to be obviously doing this in more detail in the other assessment task, in the micro-teaching assessment task. And also you'll elaborate a little bit wherever it falls in the unit, but describe it here. And tell us, the importance of where it falls within the unit here. Student prior learning. So you need to be thinking about what experiences and what learnings has the student undertaken previously. It might be last semester. It might be last year, if you're looking at year 11. It might be in the junior sciences. Okay, but you need to be thinking, well, have they experienced this topic before? What do they know? If you have a subject that requires the students to undertake units 1 and 2, like it's a prerequisite, what does that mean for your students? And then if you have a specialization, for example, like biology or psychology, and you don't have prerequisites, well, what does that mean for the students that have not completed units 1 and 2? How are you going to support them? Okay, so this is not only thinking about what topics and what curriculum content students have experienced, but it's also thinking about, well, if they haven't experienced it, how are you going to support them? Okay, so the actual unit template. We've got an example of week 1 and week 2. Now, you will obviously need to cut and paste if you require more than 2 weeks, and that will depend on your specialization and your area of study. We want you to follow this template of the lessons, the key knowledge and skills that you're going to cover in that lesson, the learning experiences, and the assessment. So thinking about how you're going to assess students each lesson. So you don't have to follow this, but something similar to, 1 45-minute lesson and 2 lots of an hour and a half lessons a week, or something similar, okay? So something that you've experienced in the past that would outline VCE. This section here is going to be cut and paste from the study design, okay? So not all of them, obviously, because you're going to be focusing on a few or only 1 or 2, depending on your lessons. Now, we've put an example here. You don't have to follow this, but you need to think about your lesson, your specialization, and the learning experiences you want your students to undertake. So here we just thought, okay, well, if it's going to be some kind of explicit teaching in the lesson, we're going to have a warm-up. It's going to be engaging, worthwhile. It's going to be connected to the curriculum. We'll have some kind of explicit teaching here. We're going to have a whole class activity here, and then we'll go into the individual consolidation and finally a reflection at the end of the lesson. So while you don't have to follow this, and some specializations will not because of the structure of or the nature of the specialization, it's important to consider the flow of the lesson here. Okay, so this, for your knowledge, is based on gradual release of responsibility, but you can change this into any structure that you wish, okay? Lastly, you need to think about the assessment going on in each lesson. So thinking about the pre-assessment, so how you're going to check students' knowledge, what skill level they're at, any misconceptions. What are you going to look for in the lesson to understand where the students are at, whether they've actually understood what you've taught them, the meta language, the skills, etc. What are you looking for? How will the students get the feedback they need? And how will they demonstrate their understanding? So here we're talking about, well, what evidence are you looking for to understand that the goals of the lesson have been met? Okay. So you're not always going to have something summative in every lesson, but you'll definitely have formative assessment throughout every lesson. At the end, make sure you include any references or resources. If you need specific rooms, for an example, you need to do an experiment, just make a mention here. Include the exact URL and Harvard referencing. Okay, so I will need to explain the individual reflection in another video as I've reached my 15 minutes. So please view the other video to discuss the individual reflection as well as the rubric and how you will be assessed. Thanks.